Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Sam Redgate-Large channel. And it's a Friday night, and other than the fact that Huddersfield Town kick off in 15 minutes, there isn't really too much football going on tonight, with it being a Friday. And what can we expect after a jam-packed week full of FA Cup football, which obviously saw Chelsea scrape through past Luton Town, and a few other big games, Middlesbrough knocking out Spurs, of course. Me and Louis love the thought of that. And as you can see, that beautiful face, we are joined by Louis for tonight, and he will be joining us to discuss Roman Abramovich. What is going on? Why is this happening? And why Chelsea are being sold? So, Louis, lovely to have you back on the channel. I think your last feature was the vlog, is that right?
Yeah, I think the Huddersfield Town vlog, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been a little while, hasn't it, since we've had you on in terms of a live. I think the last live, you've had one this season. Early on in the season, because I remember you broke your swear curse within about 10 seconds of the game.
Brentford game.
Yeah. Yes. So it's good to have you back. And hopefully there's no no swearing needed within the first 10 seconds of this stream tonight. Yeah. That is all we can hope for. But who knows? Maybe if you rattle Louis up, he might drop an F-bomb for you. But evening to Ultimate Soft Gaming and Active Aaron as well, who's saying Mike Ashley loves to buy a club for a price cut. Aaron's already coming in with the banter. But we do have a little list at the moment. I've written down a few topics to talk about. And so we're going to start off. And really the best place to start off is just as a review of this last week and talk about Chelsea in the last week, because obviously it has been quite a jam-packed week for Chelsea, with this news escalating that Abramovich was eventually going to sell. And in the world, it's been a jam-packed last week. And of course, in terms of football, there was also the fact that Chelsea lost that Carabao Cup final and only just scraped past Luton 3-2 in the FA Cup. Louis, what were your thoughts, just to start off with the Carabao Cup final? Chelsea, I think they look better for the most part. And I know that's hard to say when you've lost the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool in such a dramatic fashion, but I do think they look better, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, we've had sort of a history of this season. You know, we may have won the Super Cup and we may have won the Club World Cup, but in neither final did we ever look really convincing. We were kind of saved by Kepa in the penalty shootout against Villarreal, and then in the Club World Cup, we really did just have to battle against a team that we really should have been beating quite comfortably. So I was quite nervous going into the Carabao Cup final, thinking Liverpool could wash over us if we perform like that. And on the whole, we were fine. We were good. But I think that the game was a lesson in take your chances. The amount of chances from Mason Mount, Lukaku, just there's so many chances in that game where we should have won it. And even I think the VAR decision against Romelu Lukaku's goal was shambolic. But I can't sit here and just criticize VAR in that game. We should have maybe been 2-3-0 up at that point. It wasn't. We shouldn't really be resting on a VAR decision. Then penalties. I know a lot of people like to say these days that penalties aren't the lottery that they were, but keepers are not expected to take penalties.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And my question was, what happened to the ABBA penalty style? Like, I swear that was introduced at some point, because they basically worked out, didn't they, that it's something like 30% of the time the team that takes the first penalty is more likely to win. What do you know what happened to that? I feel like that just disappeared, because one of my most favorite jokes came out of that, and I'm going to repeat it right now, because it was ABBA, and the person said, it's the penalty technique where the winner takes it all. And I absolutely loved it, because it was ABBA and the winner takes it all. And I loved it, and I loved bringing that one out. But now they're not doing it anymore. So number one, they've killed my joke. And of course, Kepa, it had fallen to him. I wonder if it would have changed had there been that ABBA scheme. It's a harsh way to go out. Obviously, by the sounds of things, Louis, you maybe agree with myself that Romelu Lukaku's offside was very harsh. I think that's more a problem with the rule, though, than the actual refereeing, because if you put your arm out, in this bit's offside. Why? I can't score with this bit, so why does that matter? But we won't dive back into that again. That's a can of worms that I'm sure lots of passionate Chelsea fans have been rambling on about this week, and you don't need that from us anymore. But what you do need from us is just the talk as well, just before we dive into this. And we've got the FA Cup. We've had that game against Luton. Do you think there was a little bit of sloppiness in there and a little bit of maybe overconfidence going into that game after a good performance against Liverpool? Yes, we lost, but a good performance against Liverpool. Do you think there was an element of sloppiness and an element of overconfidence and maybe everything that's going on around the club at the moment just getting into people's heads?
Yeah, defensively, we were really shambolic at times, which is not something that we're used to seeing under Tuchel. It tends to be our sort of our best sort of feature of our team is always being our defense and our defensive acumen through our games. I don't think Malang Sarr will look back on that game with much nostalgia. He was pretty he was a bit off. And then again, just up top, we're just not as clinical as we should have been. I mean, fair play to Sol. I think he actually had a fairly decent game, got his goal, should have probably scored a second or at least squared it to Lukaku. But it was a bit over sort of cockiness in it, and there was just and then to go 1-0 down was bad enough, but fair enough, that's a set piece. If you well drill your set pieces, that can happen.
Inside 2 minutes as well. We've seen weirder things, haven't we?
Yeah. And then the second goal, it was really toppy. Why we were playing such a high line, basically on the halfway line, trying to press was, I don't know. And they were just 1-on-1, and they were free. So yeah, it was a good fight back, and it's nice to see that Chelsea have that fight back spirit. We've seen not much of that in recent years, but we're through, and we've got Middlesbrough next, who I'm now more worried about, given they've knocked out both United and Spurs in the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, more worried than ever, really. More worried than ever. Welcome to those guys who are just joining the chat, even into Shrafter, who's just joined as well. And J-Back is in here as well, saying Mr. Beast can sign Chelsea. Imagine the scenes. I think, who did I just see? I think J-Back put Conor McGregor can buy you, or one of the sidemen. I think you've overestimated how rich the sidemen are there. Boys, inject some intelligence into the chat, says Curved. And evening to you, Curved, as well. Lovely to see you, mate. And what I was just going to say, just before we move off and we actually move on to the big talking point, and Louis is going to explain that for you guys. I just wanted to say it was nice to see, and I know it's only Luton Town and you can discredit Luton as much as you want, but this is a team that is, they're looking to sniff around those playoff positions for the Championship next season. So by no means is this a bad Luton side, but I think it was really, really nice to see Romelu Lukaku and Timo Werner, specifically Timo Werner, get on the score sheet, because Timo Werner that night was very, very good. And I know, like you're always going to say, it's a team playing in the division below you, they're not as good. But Werner was really good, and he looked like he had the confidence, and we haven't seen that from Timo Werner in a long, long time. And for me, just the movement to get him behind off that ball. I think it was the ball from Ruben Loftus-Cheek with pinpoint. And that's another positive, actually, that Ruben Loftus-Cheek can maybe play in that role. It was a little bit foreign to him in that sort of first 10, 15 minutes, but a lot changed in that second half, and he got into the groove of it. And then, of course, bringing on Reece James allowed him to step into midfield. And from there on, Luton were miles away from where they wanted to be. But that's enough football talk in terms of what's gone on in the last week. Now let's talk about, Roman Abramovich, the main talking point of this week. And what we're going to do is, as at work, I am in a politically restricted role. I am going to let Louis go through the politics of this type of thing and sort of explain it all, and because Louis is allowed to acknowledge these kinds of things, and I will just sit here nice and quietly. So Louis, take it away. What has happened with Roman Abramovich over the last week?
I mean, there's simple and complicated answers to this, but I'll try and stick to the more simple and try and simplify any complicated sort of areas. It's essentially Roman Abramovich, we all know, is a very, very rich man. He's worth estimated around $12 billion. Like, there's a lot of money that he is worth. And he's essentially got a lot of that money during the collapse of the Soviet Union back in the 90s. He set up a privatized steel company, which is technically based in the UK, but is effectively a Russian company because that's where it operates there and other Eastern European countries. So he has amassed a lot of wealth through his steel company, and he used then that money to buy Chelsea back in 2003 for roughly around £140 million. And yeah, because he is such a wealthy man in the Russian economy, this naturally lends him to have ties with the government, because he is one of the Russian oligarchs, basically making up a small group of wealthy businessmen who not only operate their businesses within Russia and for Russian interests, such as Gazprom, which is Russian natural gas, as well as other resources such as coal, steel, in terms of Roman Abramovich. So these men support the Russian government financially and, through jobs and everything. And in return, they are also supported by the Russian government. And due to their recent invasion of Ukraine, the UK government has now started imposing sanctions on the Russian oligarchs who are currently based in the UK, of which there are quite a few, Roman Abramovich being one of them. Of course, Abramovich has been out of the UK for some time now. He did apply almost for citizenship to the UK back in 2018, 2019, but he decided to withdraw his visa application and has been living basically in exile of the UK for some years now, hence why he's not been at Stamford Bridge for quite some years. The only time he's been able to watch Chelsea play is when they're abroad, such as the Club World Cup last month or the Champions League back in May. It's also the reason why Chelsea
won, by the way, just to drop that one in. But which we won.
Yeah. Having a serious conversation here, son. So effectively, Roman Abramovich is now coming under more and more pressure from the UK government as more sanctions are put on these Russian oligarchs who are based in the UK. So because of Abramovich's ties with Putin and obviously his Russian nationality, this comes under immediate fire because of what Putin is doing in the Ukraine. And as a way to kind of cripple the Russian economy through these sanctions, Roman Abramovich is now coming under targeted attack, and his assets are looking to be frozen. So there's pressure from both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in government to freeze Roman Abramovich's assets. One of his biggest assets being Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah.
So if the UK government was to freeze Roman Abramovich's assets while he's still control of Chelsea, it would mean that he's effectively frozen out of the club. He would no longer be able to pull any income from the club. It would also mean he can't put any money into the club. So not only do Chelsea, be completely cut off from withdrawing, he'll no longer be able to put any money into the club. It also means he won't be able to sell the club. So Chelsea will be kind of stuck in a situation where we'll only be able to get money from sponsorship and prize money from various other clubs. It also means other investors will not be able to put money into Chelsea because we are effectively a frozen asset. So it would kind of leave Chelsea in a really difficult place financially. Chelsea may seem like a club with a lot of money, but even after a Champions League victory last year, we did lose £145 million in 2021 alone. So we couldn't be able to sustain that amount of losses for very long before we possibly then went into administration and the club would come to an end. So basically, Roman Abramovich has now announced that he's selling the club because he needs to get effectively needs to get rid of as much property and as much assets as possible before they're all completely frozen, and he's basically screwed from there until the sanctions are lifted, if they are lifted in the future. So in terms of how screwed Chelsea kind of may be in the very near future, I believe Roman Abramovich has given a deadline of the 15th of March to have the club sold by.
Yeah.
By then, hopefully, no sanctions have come into place. It's unlikely that sanctions will come into place by then, but it's in Roman Abramovich's best interest and kind of Chelsea's best interest at the moment that the club gets sold as soon as possible.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, Roman Abramovich, he has been very much Mr. Chelsea. And so it is, whilst it is in his best interest in terms of financially, as a businessman, it's also in his best interest because he genuinely does love Chelsea Football Club. And so that was really, really well explained, Louis. That was much better than I could have ever explained it. So very well done. I hope that makes sense to you guys as to why Roman is selling the club. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we dive into things now and what this means for Chelsea?
Not too much, really, no.
Not too much more. Okie dokes. So, like Louis explained, all of that, all of these different things that are going on means that Roman Abramovich will be selling Chelsea. So, why not? Let's take a trip. Let's go down with a little bit of nostalgia. And talk about Chelsea before and Chelsea through the Abramovich era. And so, Louis, I'm going to have to go. Before we do anything, let's talk about some of the best moments of this Abramovich era. Let's take him out of that political nature and just talk about him at Chelsea Football Club and what he has done for Chelsea Football Club, which is simply fantastic over the few years. Louis, if you had to pick a couple of moments, what would you say has been your favourite moment since that 2003 takeover in, as a Chelsea fan, as a passionate Chelsea fan?
Certainly my first one would be I think it's pretty simple. Our first Champions League win in 2012, such a landmark achievement for the club to become the first London club to win the European Cup. And for Chelsea, it'd been such a goal since Abramovich took over. Mourinho couldn't do it. Even Ancelotti couldn't do it. And somehow Roberto Di Matteo managed it. But that was certainly my first sort of definitely one that comes to mind, as well as, of course, the last one. But that's just
yeah, that was definitely a brilliant moment. What's Aaron just put? How much you actually feel if Mike Ashley took advantage of a major cut price? Seriously, that's what he does. But the thing is, I don't think Mike Ashley has the money for that. It is Chelsea. The bid that they have received is £3 billion for Chelsea, which is a monumental amount, if I have got that correct. And that is absolutely monumental, considering, think about the profit that Abramovich would have made if he's not donating loads of it to the Ukrainian cause. It would have been absolutely monumental. So it's not that any Tom, Dick and Harry can come in. Whoever comes in will be a multi-billionaire, or between, pulled together, they will be a multi-billionaire. I'm going to say one of my favourite Chelsea moments, of course, with that Drogba. But obviously, as this channel has sort of grown, and one of my favourite moments on this channel, and therefore in a Chelsea shirt, has been that last Champions League final. It was a great moment with yourself and Jake in your flat last year. It was a really, really good moment. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a great moment, sort of thing. You get these moments for when you watch England, but you don't usually think that your club is going to be the club to do that, especially with the form that Chelsea were in. They weren't in the greatest of form, but it was a great time, and some of the signings as well we've made along the way. Eden Hazard, what a signing he was in the Abramovich era. one of the most star-studded players of this Chelsea, almost the picture boy of the Abramovich era. Of course, Frank Lampard, another one who is that picture boy. Drogba, as Curve says, the signing of Drogba was a turning point. It most certainly was. And even the signing of Jose Mourinho, that was a turning point. He'd come in from winning a Champions League with Porto, which was pretty much unheard of. And look what he did for Chelsea. 2 back-to-back Premier League titles. He was monumental, wasn't he? He was the stepping stone for Chelsea. Had we not hit the ground running in this era of the last 20 years or so, whatever it may be, and we'd not had Jose Mourinho, I don't think we would have been anywhere near where we are now. I think we'd only just be getting up there. Maybe, look at Manchester City. It took them 4 or 5 years to really get the ball rolling and start to get going.
Yeah.
And sorry, carry on.
No, I was saying, people really underestimate the fact that when Roman Abramovich didn't take over a minuscule club. It wasn't a club in ruin. It was a club that was steady. And it had potential. And I think Roman Abramovich really saw that when he bought the club. And some of the players that we had back in 2003 weren't anyone to be snuffed at. And bringing in getting rid of Ranieri and bringing in Jose Mourinho, really was just the sort of the last piece of the puzzle, as well as the new signings, and got instant success. And really, the fact is, Roman Abramovich changed the way football and the way that football owners had to work. And no one can even argue against that, because the fact that Chelsea's meteoric rise and the amount of success that we've had over the last 19 years is all down to the way that Roman Abramovich ran the club. Yeah. Because he just wanted it to succeed, and he knew how to run it. If he just pumped the money in, eventually he's going to get results. And
exactly. Eventually it would. And I've just put, just for clarification here, you can go all the way back to the 1930s if you want, and you can go all this way back to as you can see, all these first divisions, whatever they may be. But really where we're bothered from in terms of this is this sort of 1990s, maybe a little bit before, because as you can see, Chelsea won the second division after getting relegated. And then from there on, since 1990, they have been in the first division the whole way through, finishing 5th. And to be fair, that is monumental in itself, going from first in the second division to 5th itself. And then Chelsea were very much a steady Premier League side there. And it almost reminds me of a little bit, and you can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, it reminds me a little bit of almost like how Southampton have been a few years, sort of 11th, 14th, kicking around, then one good season, and then maybe more onto a Leicester style here. But as you can see, it went from 11th to 6th in 96, 97. And so this is when Chelsea really started to show aspirations. Did we win 2 FA Cups in this time as well before the 2003-04 season, where everything did change. And evening to Curly as well, who's just joined. Get the AVFTS group to buy Chelsea. I'll be the head of the transfer making, says Oliver. Lovely stuff. But as you can see, it was a steady increase. And so whilst there is always going to be comparisons between Chelsea, Manchester City and Newcastle United, that is the big difference with Chelsea, is that they were on this upward slope when they were taken over. It was just the trajectory went from being like this to like this. And as you can see here, it went 6th, 4th, 3rd, 5th, 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 4th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd. And then it went from being a league dominated by Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, to Manchester United and Chelsea. And as you can see, other than this 1/10th place after Jose Mourinho's season, and that was a weird season anyway, the year less
talk about that season.
Yeah, it was such a weird season. But as you can see, always there, pretty much there or thereabouts in that top 5, top 6 European battle. And that is probably the thing we can say about Roman Abramovich, is that he has he has gained a lot in terms of a lot of love from Chelsea fans, but also what he's pumped into this club is absolutely monumental. And what we're starting to see now in this sort of more modern era, as you can see, Chelsea haven't won a Premier League since 2016-17. But we've had a few years here of sort of, maybe the best word to say is turbulence. We've had a few years of turbulence, but now we're starting to see the investments that were made all the way back down here into Cobham, into the training facilities there, into that grassroots level, are all starting to come to fruition up here. And we're now starting to get players that are coming through into our sides. Yes, we can still spend 100 million on Romelu Lukaku, but it is starting to come to fruition. And evening to Max as well, and Curve saying, why am I watching a Chelsea show? It's because you love it too much, Curve. That's why. You absolutely love it. But this is what I mean. It's more than like Roman Abramovich, what he's done for Chelsea Football Club is more than just pump money at transfers. He's had the ability to go, actually, I need to invest my money elsewhere. And he has. He most certainly has. He's invested that money so well. And Chelsea are reaping the repercussions for it. They're flying at times. And you've seen the likes of Mason Mount, of course, you know how much I talk about him. But he's not the only graduate of this Cobham Academy. You've got Declan Rice, who is another player who played for Chelsea at the academy. You've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, another player. Christiansen came through our own academy. Yes, we signed him a little bit later, but he still came through our academy, and that wouldn't have been possible without the amount of money that was given by Roman Abramovich. Louis, any talking points just to talk about whilst we've got these historical league positions on the screen for us?
Chelsea winning the title next season.
Chelsea.
I mean, no, I just want to echo what you said there. I do want to kind of just echo what you said, but there's so much around the Chelsea that has changed. You know, the image of the club is so different to what it was back in 2003. You know, we talk about in 2003, I don't think anyone would have even questioned the fact that Arsenal were the biggest club in London, and they probably would have even, you know, disregarded any attempt to even think that it would be that like 20 years in the future. But you know, now Chelsea is such just an international presence in world football. You know, we talk about the price tag on Chelsea at the moment, it's £3 billion. That would make, if the club is sold for that, it would make this club worth more than Manchester United. Yeah, Manchester United are currently only worth around £2 billion.
Monumental.
So if this deal does go through and the Abramovich does get the asking price that he's looking for, which at the moment is looking likely, then it would make Chelsea if not the most, you know, valuable club in the world. And that's purely down to what Abramovich and his team has done with this club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking there, you know, we spoke about that 10th place position. That is really the only sort of blip among a great sort of transitional period in last 19 years or so. You can look at these league positions. This one, we finished 6th, but what did we win that year? We won the Champions League, and we've won other stuff when we haven't necessarily achieved in the league, which is very much an important part. But Louis, you've left us on a really good point there, and talking about the bid and where Chelsea may go from here. And as you can see, I've come prepared, just like I'm on the TV. But let me remove this from our screens, guys. Let me get rid of this. And let's talk about the potential new owners. And so there is I'm going to say a few standout owners, but in terms of standout, I mean a collective 3, 2 of which have been named, a collective 3 who are looking to buy Chelsea together and have that input together. Because obviously, like Louis alluded to, £3 billion is a monumental number, which is absolutely bonkers. 3 billion, literally, it's going to go down to the biggest business owners in the world, this will, to buy Chelsea from Roman Abramovich, because the man's worth 12 billion himself. He's not going to settle for anything less than 3 billion. And even people who we think of as rich men, for example, like Aaron said, Mike Ashley, he's nowhere near. He is nowhere near. Oliver's saying that Huddersfield are 2-0 up as well. So get in. Huddersfield doing bits there for us. But the new owners. So the new owners are, and I'm going to butcher some of these names because the first guy, he is Swiss. He's a Swiss businessman called Hans-Jörg. This is the best way I'm going to pronounce it. Louis, I don't know what your pronunciation is.
Well, I've got it written down in front of me, like you have. Yeah, I don't know. Hans-Jörg Weiss.
What was that noise? What was? Oh.
Move on.
Oh,
serious stream, Tom. Serious stream.
Oh, Jesus. Go on then, tell us your pronunciation.
I think got Hans-Jörg or Weiss.
Yeah, whatever it may be. And he's a Swiss billionaire. And from what I can work out, this has kind of come out of the blue. And there is a little bit of politics behind the reason why the Swiss businessman wants to buy Chelsea. And I've seen tweets from journalists saying that he has no real interest in football. He enjoys sports in that sense, but he's not the biggest fan of football. But the reason why he wants to go in with this bid, this is what is circulating on social media, is that he wants to rid Chelsea from Roman Abramovich and thinks that he will be doing us a favour by buying us, obviously, at this current moment in time. Absolutely. But it's more for the political side of it. He wants to get the potential link that Louis spoke about earlier with Abramovich and Putin. He wants to eliminate that from Chelsea Football Club. And with the recent invasion as well, that is part of the reason that he is looking to do that. And like Louis said, the bid must be submitted before the 15th of March. So we've not got long to wait for this. We've got a matter of 9 days to find out whether he will. He's also been linked with the LA Dodgers owner, which is Todd, and I'm going to pronounce this one wrong, but he's American. So it's a Bowley is what I'm going to go with.
Bowley, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a H in it, but Bowley, who I think is probably, he might take the reins a little bit more in terms of the day-to-day stuff, with him being the owner or a part owner of the LA Dodgers as well. But I've written down a few pros and cons here, and like I mentioned, there will be a third owner that comes with these two, who has yet to be officially named in journalistic pieces. And that is my first big sort of negative of this takeover, is how many countries, how many things in the world, businesses work better with 3 people at the helm. It doesn't happen very often. How many times is there a president and then there's another president? There's 2 presidents. It doesn't work like that, because it just isn't the most efficient way. You have someone who's cutthroat at the top, tells you this is what's happening, this is what's happening. And so that for me is a big negative of the way that the club will then be run, is that, yes, it might be, like I say, the fact that the LA Dodgers owner, Todd, we're on first name basis already. The fact that he is maybe more sports orientated probably lends him better to run the club as a sports club rather than a business. But then the other 2 will still want to have some say in that sense. And we need someone who's going to be able to almost be cutthroat at the top of Chelsea Football Club, because that is an expectation. Me and you specifically, Louis, we've grown up with a team that we're used to managers just going like that. And that is because we have such high expectations of ourselves that only the best will do. Only the best will do. Louis, what do you think to 3 owners? I can't see it going very well, if I'm honest with you. 3 seems even excessive as well.
I mean, it's not uncommon now, just because of how much money it's gonna take to buy a club such as Chelsea. Of course, we currently see with Liverpool and Manchester United, they both have collective owners. Of course, Liverpool are owned by FSG, and then of course United have the Glazers. And at United, we're seeing how well that's going down at the moment. Not very. And Liverpool, for many years, they've complained about their owners.
Yeah.
And I think even with how well Liverpool are doing now, I think there's quite a lot of Liverpool fans out there who are still not very happy with their owners, especially their lack of interest to invest in the squad, which has always been something that is, I wouldn't say plaguing Liverpool at the moment, given that they do have currently a very talented squad, but it's something that long term is really going to hinder Liverpool. The fact that they're not really bringing in too much youth, or sort of like fresh blood into their team. And unfortunately, that's the sort of the thing that I kind of worry about when we had someone like Roman Abramovich, who, single owner, he decided what's going to happen. If he wanted to pump £200 million into the club at a time, he could do that. When you've got a committee, that's when issues arise. If people don't want to put more money in, or or if they all collectively agree that they don't want to constantly keep pumping money into the club, then that's when issues such as what the likes of Manchester United at the moment are looking at. It's just with investors who have no real interest in the money. They're just looking to, cream off the top, which has not been what Abramovich is about. Abramovich never, I don't think in the 19 years that he's been owner, he's ever made profit after a year, like yearly profit on Chelsea.
Yeah,
he's done this, and he won't make the £2.9 billion profit that he probably would have taken if the whole Ukraine situation wasn't happening at the moment. But yeah, so it's going to be weird. It's going to be definitely a change of pace. We'll probably see an entirely new board come into the club, which, to be honest, I'm not actually too fussed about, given the fact that I think Bruce Buck is words I can't say on this channel, and he was the one who spearheaded our entry into the European Super League. So if he wants to leave, he can do one. Obviously, probably that Marina woman who's our head of recruitment, obviously she's probably going to be missed a lot.
She's been very good over the Abramovich era.
She has been exceptional.
She was one of the people who helped Frank Lampard. Obviously, Frank Lampard did have somewhat of a touch to him when it comes to bringing in players, but I don't think if we didn't have them, I don't think we would have signed Havertz, Lukaku, Thiago Silva. I don't think they would have come in. And obviously we've had I'm just thinking more on a recent basis because they're fresh in my mind, but that is something that will definitely be missed. And another big negative is, as you've alluded to, somewhat in there, is that running it like a business. Obviously, Roman Abramovich very rarely makes a profit. And yes, Chelsea's expectation going into this can't be that someone's going to spend $2 billion on us and not want to make any profit back, because not everyone is like Roman Abramovich, who has that many fingers in that many pies, that it means that he can still continue to grow as a billionaire, as a businessman, despite missing however many million from his bank account. And so part of it is management of Chelsea Football Club's fans' expectations, but part of it is that these owners, whoever they are who come in, are going to need to be aware that Chelsea have lived a very luxurious life for the past 19 years. And they cannot come in and all of a sudden go, right, that's you cut off. Or right, that's you've got 100 million, make that last 3 years. Because that's not how Chelsea work. And as soon as they start looking to make it look like a business, the Chelsea fans will turn on them, because they will go, well, it wasn't like this under Roman. It wasn't. And that's quite simply a fact. But that being said, it could be a completely fresh outlook. And we could be sat here in 2 years' time, God, I hope we're not still sat here on 600 subscribers 2 years' time, but we could be sat here in 2 years' time going, you know what? It's been brilliant. We loved Roman Abramovich, what he did for Chelsea Football Club, but we could be sat here going, you know what? This was a really good takeover, this was. And if anything, it's just bolstered us. And now we look even better for when the day comes that these eventually sell Chelsea Football Club, and that we look even more stable with the facilities and the options to move forward. Is there anything else you just wanted to add just on the subject of the new owners at the moment before we go on to, I guess it kind of links in together with fan expectation. So I guess that's quite a nice one to link onto. So what is your main priority, Louis, as a fan of Chelsea Football Club? What do you expect from these new owners as they come in?
I think my main expectation is kind of similar to what I've expected from Roman for the last however many years. You know, this club is going to take a lot of management. It's not something that you can just come in and just go, oh, we're just going to start creaming off the top. I don't want a Stan Kroenke. I don't want a Glazers. I don't want an FSG who are just going to come in and be fickle and they're just going to not do much with the club. I don't want Chelsea to be in 5 years' time where Arsenal are now. This is the sort of the long and the short of it. I don't, you know, Chelsea are a team who are still have so much potential, and it's a club that has so many avenues in which to go that I don't want to see it stall because we've lost a crucial revenue stream and it's not been replaced by something as reliable or as willing to put the money in. You know, I'm not really expecting like a Sheikh Mansour or whichever, you know, the Saudi consortium that took over Newcastle, because let's face it, the guys that are taking over, or the, you know, even the 2 or 3 people that are going to may take over Chelsea, they don't have the money that they do. You know, it's ridiculous how much Sheikh Mansour is worth. He makes Roman Abramovich look poor, and also the Saudi consortium makes Sheikh Mansour look very poor. So I
think it's like 260 billion, isn't it? Like,
yeah, getting on for 300 billion. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. I was looking at the value of the 2 guys who we know who are making the bids, and I believe between them it's about 13 billion. So between them, they are about the same worth as Roman Abramovich himself. And so that obviously has massive, massive weight. And like you say, they've got to be committed to it, haven't they?
Yeah, this is. I just really hope it's not that it's something that they're going to take lightly, and they're just like, oh, one of the biggest clubs in Europe has just gone up for sale. Why not? Let's go on it. It's like people were looking. Well, Conor McGregor publicly tweeted saying that the Chelsea deal was something that he was looking to get involved, and the media I was like, no, because he will. Starters, he's a Manchester United fan. Why would I want a Manchester United fan running Chelsea?
No.
You know.
Yeah.
Maybe if you put a bid into the Glazers, they might consider his offer. But run your own club. Do not come to my club and just run it like it's just one of your businesses. It's not something that I want. So that's all I ask, is these new owners to be committed to the fact that maybe we need a new stadium. I think that's something that Chelsea are going to need, because, you know, you look at Arsenal, they've got a new ground when Stan Kroenke come in. You know, Tottenham have just built themselves, you know, a very nice new ground. Chelsea really can't operate with a stadium that is only 41,000 capacity. If we want to go in the long run, we need something that is 60, 65, 70,000 seater, which will then eventually pay itself in the long run, because that just allows for more ticket sales, brings more fans into the ground. Of course, it is relatively restricted because of where Stamford Bridge is and all the housing around it. But Roman had a plan for it. Surely they can make something else.
Yeah, so, there's definitely that is obviously a negative, whether that means leaving Stamford Bridge in itself. I can't see that happening, but, you know, we've seen weirder with Arsenal leaving the Highbury themselves. So it is there, but for Chelsea, it might just be like with Liverpool, where you get that stand extension to add a couple of thousand. But even still, we are one of the biggest on a global stage. And at the moment, our stadium isn't competing with those teams around us. It's not competing with, for example, Newcastle. Newcastle fill that out every single week. And I have no doubts that if you extended it to 50,000, you'd still sell out every single week. It's not a problem whatsoever. Just going to touch on a few of the comments that have been coming in, none of the silly ones which have been coming in. Lord Humongous has said, there isn't heart and passion in Chelsea, you just only have money god. And that's where I would tend to disagree. I'm not gonna bite on this one because I know what people are like. They do say these things, but if you were going to say that, you've definitely said it to the two wrong Chelsea fans here, because I cannot think of two people who love Chelsea Football Club more and watch more football than me and Louis do. I've sat and watched every single game. And so I definitely think there is maybe a bit of a disconnect, if you will, from everyone and how they view typical fans, if you will, because Liverpool have a lot of fans in Liverpool. Manchester United have a lot of fans in Manchester. Chelsea, it's more spread out. I would tend to say it's probably more spread out generally, but obviously Manchester United fans, you go to whatever foreign country it may be. You could go to Europe, Eastern Europe. You could go to India, Asia, all these different places, and you will see Manchester United and Liverpool fans there. And that is because of their previous glory and previous success. And that doesn't mean that Chelsea have less heart in their club. It just means that they are later to bloom, if you know what I mean. It's hard to describe it. It is just that in 10 years' time, I'm sure we'll come back to this and be like, how do these people how have any of these got Chelsea football shirts? Like, you look at people in third world countries, and often they'll have Liverpool or Manchester United tops on, and you're like, what? Where's that come from? But now it'll end up changing, and it'll end up being the same thing. And I think, as Lord Among Us says there, without money of Abramovich, Chelsea is over. I don't think we are, because I think the best way to look at it is that actually the investments that Abramovich has made over this 19-year period has set us up brilliantly. And of course, if we get frozen, that is a completely different one. But if Abramovich sells us for that $3 billion that he's supposed to, no matter what happens, you would like to think we're still going to be bare minimum, a top 10 side. Absolute bare minimum. And that's a generous minimum with that one. And provided we're not frozen, I don't think things will change too drastically. I think we'll maybe have a drop off, but it could be completely different, and it could go completely the other way. And like Oliver says, Chelsea have plastic fans. I mean, how many fans have you met? Because the two that you're surveying so far, I wouldn't say that me and Louis are plastic fans whatsoever. So it's just who you meet. Every side has plastic fans. Every side does. They have, me and Louis are plastic fans with Huddersfield Town. As soon as they do all right, me and Louis are like, whoa, town. But that's because we live here. And so everyone's like it. Everyone pays attention to some degree. And Chelsea is still going to have that money, still going to have that investment, and still have people coming in absolutely loving Chelsea Football Club from far and wide, and things won't change too much. Let's have a look, see if there's any more actually decent comments, because you guys did go on a little bit of a rant about random stuff there, and hence why this comment made me laugh. That was when you made that squeak. Oh, that was absolutely brilliant. So, in terms of what I have put down as some of my fan expectations, so I'm pretty much on a similar line to yourself in terms of owners who have to be. Chelsea are used to owners who are willing to give it all, And I think that's the thing about Roman Abramovich, how much he loved Chelsea Football Club. He absolutely adored the club. He was willing to do anything for it. And Chelsea won't settle for anything less than that. And it sounds a little bit self-centered and it sounds a little bit, arrogant. But when you've been treated so well, why would you be taking a step down? Why would you have that in any way? Whoever buys us next time, it's going to be hard to buy us out, let's be honest. Excuse me. So we're going to be stuck with them for a little while. But I think, provided they give their all and they actually look like what they are doing is to determine what's better for the club, I don't think Chelsea fans will ever really complain. Trophies, making sure that at least every 2 seasons we win at least one trophy. I think that's not an unrealistic expectation of Chelsea Football Club at this current moment in time. Obviously, over the last few years, like we alluded to earlier on, 2017 we finished 5th, and the season before we had finished 1st. So that was the last time we won the Premier League in 2017, 16-17. But as long as Chelsea keep ticking over with FA Cups, whatever, Champions Leagues, Europa Leagues as well, we've won in this time. As long as Chelsea keep doing that, I think Chelsea fans will keep being happy. And it's not all about winning the Premier League for us. For Liverpool, it's about winning the Premier League. For Manchester City now, it's about winning the Champions League. As long as Chelsea, during this period of turbulence, keep getting themselves to finals, Chelsea fans won't complain. And they'll be like, actually, look, they're backing us. We're just slightly too far away at the moment. And who knows, maybe bringing in a nice young manager as well, potentially further down the line. Obviously, I don't want to get rid of Thomas Tuchel yet. I'm not trying to get rid of him from the club. I think he's been brilliant. But who knows, they might have a young Swiss manager who might be able to reincarnate Jose Mourinho. The next point I have is keeping investment in grassroots. And I've spoken on this multiple times, but I think that's so important. Generally, in terms of for England, in society, I think making sure that grassroots is sorted as well as the top people are sorted as well. I think that is vitally important for football to continue going, because at the end of the day, football is what makes grassroots is what makes football so possible. And that is the most important thing. Any thoughts on that one, Louis?
Yeah, no, that's completely true. Chelsea, we have such a great academy. It is truly one of the best, if not in world football. The amount of talent that we're able to bring through is just incredible. So the fact that we saw in that year under Lampard, when we had that transfer embargo, we could rely on so much of that youth going through. And I think that, under Jose and under the other managers, they were very hesitant. They only brought through maybe the 1 or 2 youth players. But since that season with Lampard, where we brought in those youth, we've seen so many youngsters, actively, in the squad. You just have to look at a starting 11. And as we've already mentioned, you'll see Christensen in the squad, you'll see Reece James, you'll see Mason Mount, Callum Hudson-Odoi is starting to play a lot more now. Obviously, we did have Tammy Abraham or the likes of Fikayo Tomori, who are doing really well in Serie A. And that's just the beginning. They are really the first wave of the sort of the youngsters to really get that opportunity, and I'm pretty sure that going into the future, we are going to see more and more young players come into this team. And that is something that Chelsea have really shifted towards over the last few years. It's something that we're quite well, sort of like well known and sort of fairly respected for doing. And that is something that we can't afford to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was always under Abramovich, especially maybe between the years of, specifically, I'm thinking of about, well, sort of the 10 years between 2005 and 2015, where there was always the joke that Chelsea just loan out every single player. They buy a player and then just loan them back out again to make sure that they can have them if they come good. But so much has changed during that time. And that's why as well, another reason why when you guys say Chelsea are nothing without the money, yes, okay, we are very grateful for the money that Roman Abramovich has pumped into us. And what I'm going to say is that it has some validity, that argument. But also now, take that money away from us. Where did we finish? We finished in the top 4. And we have assets that are going to sell at Chelsea Football Club for big amounts of money. I'd hate to see it, but Mason Mount, you could get at least 60, 70 million for Mason Mount, a 23-year-old centre attacking midfielder who's got 8 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League this season. You know, we've got plenty of players that are going to sell. Christian Pulisic, another one. Kante would still sell. And so Chelsea are still bringing through this talent. And yes, the likes of Conor Gallagher are still coming through. And so people who are looking at Chelsea and going, oh, they're going to be screwed, a little bit naive, because Chelsea, and I've said it before jokingly, but Chelsea are everywhere. Chelsea are everywhere. You look at Armando Broja, Chelsea. Tyreek Lamptey, Chelsea. All these good players coming through. Conor Gallagher, Chelsea. Tomori's now at AC Milan, was at Chelsea. If Chelsea keep pumping out players at the same rate that they are doing right now, yes, we haven't been able to keep a hold of them because of game time management, but Chelsea will be absolutely fine. And that money of Roman Abramovich will continue to support and fund our club despite him not being there. And so that's why I think grassroots investments are that important, because now specifically with the few players I've mentioned there, and of course we've got Tino Anjorin, Huddersfield Town's Tino Anjorin, still at the club as well. We've got plenty of talent to come through from this side, and plenty to go for. More of my expectations is, well, I think general fan expectations would be not running the club as a business. We've spoken about this. It's not about the profit with Chelsea Football Club. You can't come in instantly and expect to make a profit. It would have to be a transition. Lord Hummus is a Milan fan and has just put Tomori in loads of love hearts, and Olivier Giroud as well. We love them both. We love them both. And the next one is deep enough pockets to make us competitive and then back the managers. And that is a direct implication of Spurs. I hope you're hearing that one, because you're supposed to back your managers. That's what you're supposed to do when you've got the money. Don't just build a stadium, back your managers. It's very, very helpful. Very helpful. Curly's put, what do you think is the thing that Chelsea is missing to hold them back from winning the league and staying consistent through a season? And do you think this is something the new owners can sort out? I'll let you lead, Louis. And look at this sexy photo of me. If you haven't clocked that is me.
Yeah, tell me a little. To be honest, I'll be honest, I didn't actually spot it was you until you said. I don't know. We just.
Well, that's the end of the questions. Thank you.
I think at the moment we just seem to have a bit of a mismatched squad. It seems to be a bit all over the place. We have very solid defenders, but we have attackers that don't really do much. I think that's something that we need. We need Eden Hazard back.
Oh, he is not the solution. Not now.
I know.
Eden Hazard is not the solution.
We need prime Eden Hazard back.
We do.
Or someone like that. Someone who's a creative type who can just score goals out of anywhere. That's something we need. The lack of creativity going forward sometimes is just painful.
I know what you mean. We are lacking that world-class sort of attacker right now. We've got a world-class defender in Thiago Silva, in Rudiger. We've got a world-class goalkeeper, most definitely. You can't take that one away from us. And we've got a couple of world-class midfielders, including someone who finished third in the Ballon d'Or, if we haven't mentioned. But we don't have a world-class attacker, or an attacker that seems to want to work for us if they are world-class. Lukaku. So I 100% agree. I think we need this curse of the Chelsea number 9 as well needs to disappear. I don't know how that one's going to happen.
I don't know how it's going to happen at all. Like, it's been going on for so long. You got to think of the list of strikers that we've gone through since Didier Drogba. Like Samuel Eto'o, Fernando Torres, Alvaro Morata, Gonzalo Higuain, Alexandre Pato, Radamel Falcao. and now Timo Werner and Romelu Lukaku. These are quality players who all tanked at Chelsea. And why?
Yeah.
We don't know.
No, part of it is that expectation. You come into a club that's worth £3 billion, and there's always going to be that expectation. Part of it as well is that Chelsea have a play style that maybe doesn't suit other managers as much, and bringing in these players, they've got to fit the Chelsea play style. They've got to be able to sort that out. And under Thomas Tuchel, I think we've started to drift away from that traditional play style a little bit more. It's especially during those years of the Frank Lampard, John Terry's, Gary Cahill's in the team. I think we had very much a set play style, and we knew what you were going to get from Chelsea. It was very generic. It was either a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2. You knew what you were going to get. Maybe someone supporting Florent Malouda off the left, Salomon Kalou off the right, and you knew what you were going to get from this Chelsea side. And now we don't have that set. And whilst that is a good thing, it's also a bad thing. And Chelsea at the moment, what they're struggling with is that lack of just sets. I don't know how to describe it, that lack of consistent lineup, if you will, because one week we will play Ziyech, Lukaku and Mount. The next week we can play Hudson-Odoi, Werner and Havertz. And all of a sudden you've changed 3 players, if I can actually do the math, 3 players, and instantly you've changed your whole front 3. And so I think that's what Chelsea need to do to stay more consistent. Like, obviously, we know Pep loves his Pep roulette, don't we? Anyone who does FPL knows that Manchester City assets are so hard to decide who you want to buy. But you look at the other teams in the league, Liverpool. How many times over the last few years have you seen that front 3 of Salah, Firmino, and Mane? And now Salah, Jota, and Mane. And now Luis Diaz is starting to come into the mix. And so there's still that consistency. And I think that is what Chelsea need to do to stop them being a cup team and to be a league challenging team, because there's no doubts that we can compete with the best of the best.
Yeah. As you said, like that spine. Think of the spine that we used to have for however many years of Cech, Terry, Lampard, Drogba. You put any team around that spine and it would work, just because those 4 players are completely solid and they would never falter in their game. We don't have that. I mean, we have Mendy, who's quality. We have Silva, who's solid, but he's getting on now and we can't rely on him for many years. And with the likes of Christensen likely to leave, Rudiger also likely to leave, it makes it difficult to see what we're going to do from there. We've got midfield of Kante.
Well. Don't forget Aspilicueta is going to be on his way.
Yeah. In the midfield, great. We have Jorginho, the 3rd best player in the world, and N'Golo Kante. N'Golo Kante is incredibly injury prone at the moment, which is getting slightly frustrating. Yeah. And Jorginho is very prone to making the odd error. So he's not always someone you can rely on. And then up front, we're clueless. Lukaku is so hit and miss. Werner is hit and miss. Ziyech seems to be hitting some form at the moment, but this is like the first time I've seen him really hit form since he joined Chelsea at the beginning of last season. And then Pulisic is injury prone. So that's the thing that's missing. We need a spine again. We need to start building a spine.
Yeah, and that is the thing with when you take a look at the Chelsea teams gone by and the expectation of those Chelsea sides. It was, you knew that, especially between 2008 and 2014, you knew that defensive team was going to consist of John Terry at least, Ashley Cole at least, and Branislav Ivanovic. You knew it was going to be one of them. And then, it depends on who else was playing over those years, who filled in that extra spot, or it would swap in for someone else, or Paulo Ferreira would come in. Even Paulo Ferreira was at Chelsea Football Club for however many years. He knew that he was he knew his role when he came in. He didn't have to do it very often, but he came in and he knew. Same with Carlo Cudicini. You can say the same. The backup goalkeeper is there. And he was someone who wasn't a world beater, but would just do a steady job. And I think that is where Chelsea are lacking at the moment. And, you talk about not having a clue up front. It just reminded me of people, saying not having a clue. So that's what that made me think of. We also haven't got a clue up front either, which is quite ironic. Honestly, at this point, I would take Salomon Kalou in his prime any day.
Florent Malouda.
Yeah, Florent Malouda. What a baller that man was.
I was just thinking, when you're talking about like who could go in the defence, I was thinking, well, alongside Lampard in the midfield, who could you add? You had Essien, Ballack, Makaleli. And you just like thinking of these players, Deco that we had in the midfield as well. Or even at the back, we had Ricardo Carvalho as another centre-back to partner John Terry.
Yeah, and of course, don't forget you had players who'd come in like Ramirez, who come in, definitely do a job. Raul Morelos as well. He was a bit of a baller. I don't know where he came from Liverpool to us, didn't he? And he was a bit of a baller. And I don't know how Liverpool just let him go, but he was a bit of a baller when he wanted to. I remember that strike against Benfica. What a goal that was in the Europa League when we won it the first time round. Lord among us, whose name I still can't pronounce, says Jorginho is better than Tonali. I mean, I'd like to say so at the moment. I don't think so in 2 years' time. I think Jorginho, his legs have already gone, so I guess I can't really say that. But I think Jorginho will be starting to move his way out. Shah says, oh, hello, Sam. Since when were you streaming? We've been streaming exactly 1 hour, 6 minutes and 27 seconds, Shah. So that's how long we've been streaming. Curly says, Werner is miss. I don't know why that tickled me so much. Getting crippled by Pep Roulette with a triple Man City backline in my FPL. Oh, yeah, that was beautiful. Me and Curly were on Xbox the other day, and he was like, oh, yeah, my defense for this weekend is Diaz, Cancelo, and I can't think of who else is in the defense for Manchester City. Why am I drawing a blank? Who's the other big centre-back? Laporte, that's it. He had those three. And I went, oh, I won't triple up on defenders. He was like, no, it'll be fine. Only Laporte played. And so he missed out on all those points. He literally spent 15 million on 2 players on the bench.
This is why I don't do fancy. Fancy because it's just heartbreaking every week.
I know, most certainly. Lampard and Terry, no, nothing was better than Maldini and Kaká. I mean, Maldini and Kaká was unbelievable. I remember watching that Champions League night against Liverpool when I was younger. I remember watching that. And Kaká, what a player he was on his day. I think for longevity, I think I'd probably give Lampard it over Kaká and maybe sort of goal scoring, know-how, attacking positioning. But as an overall player, I think Kaká and Lampard, 2 completely different attacking midfielders, but absolutely brilliant. Do let us know, guys. Let us know what have you thought to this whole Abramovich leaving. Do you have any questions for us, guys? Sean says, do you still have Tammy Abraham? No, but we do have a buyback clause on him. Maybe not the first one I said.
Yeah.
A buy-back clause, if I don't muddle up my letters. We do have a buy-back clause on him, which will, I think it comes in, what is it? It's 18 months, the max. Yeah. I think it either comes in after 18 months or we can, it's something like that, or we can't buy him after 18 months. So there is an opportunity there if Tammy Abraham does start hitting the heights, because he is a number 9 actually for Chelsea, who has been decent. He has been decent for Chelsea, and despite our slander of number 9s for Chelsea, Tammy Abraham is probably, him and Diego Costa have probably been the only 2 you can look at and actually go, you know what, you've been decent. That being said, Diego Costa was a number 19, so I guess we can rule that one out.
There was a reason why I kind of left him out, because like, not one, he wasn't number 9, but also 2, he was really good.
Yeah, he was absolutely spectacular, wasn't he, on his day? He was spectacular, and we're just getting a bit nostalgic now, thinking about all the good times in the Roman Empire is probably the best way to say it. And Wow. I mean, we should have what we should have done was we should have picked our best sides, shouldn't we, from the Roman era? But there's too many players from too many teams, and I feel like we'd go through them, we'd end this stream, and we'd come back and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about him. I can't believe I forgot about Steve Sidwell to go in that central of midfield. How can I forget about Robert Huth at centre half? Robert Huth. Shah says, Conor McGregor to buy Chelsea. Thoughts? Curly's already said. Louis already said. That is never happening. Get Abraham back with Firmino in to support him. Has this ever? You said get him back as if this has happened before. Has this been a weird fantasy of yours, Curly, where Firmino plays it behind Tammy Abraham? Not so sure, but. Are you actually writing down your team, though? I saw you pick up your pen, and now I'm feeling pressure to do my team as well. I'm really feeling the pressure. I think most of them are quite straightforward, but I think if we agree, looking at the Roman era, what's the best way for me to be able to do this? How can we represent this on the screen? Is there a Foothead Generations thing? And we can do it on there. That is my thoughts. That is my thoughts. Oh, there is. There is. So, Louis, what formation do you want? Let me share my screen. Here we go, guys. This is a bit impromptu.
I'm going 4-3-3.
4-3-3.
But with two defensive midfielders.
With two defensive midfielders. Let me find that one. Right, got it. Let me share my screen for you guys.
I haven't got a right wing. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just thinking.
Sullivan Kalou. Sullivan. Don't you dare say Willian. If you say Willian, you are getting kicked off this call right now. If you say Willian, I am not going to be happy. I'm telling you that now. So here is the representation. And this is so makeshift that I literally not planned this whatsoever. So, Louis, do you want to kick us off with your goalkeeper?
Right. Petr
Cech. No real surprises there, I don't think. I don't think you could change anything about that. Why is his top card at Arsenal? That's so much. No, we'll ignore that. There's the goalkeeper. I think I know this one.
What position?
Left back.
Yeah, Ashley Cole.
Oh, wrong one. Oh, yeah, we don't want him. Why has Levy Ashin just appeared? What? Oh, there we are. Right. Next one, Louis.
Centre back. I think it's quite obviously my main two are going to be. It's Gary Cahill and John Terry.
Gary Cahill. Oh, is that what?
He was completely underrated, Gary Cahill.
It's mate.
Genuinely disgraceful how underrated Gary Cahill was for Chelsea.
And I hate to say it because I know JK loves him, but does that season of David Luiz under Antonio Conte, that first season, does he not got anywhere near Gary Cahill? Because I think he was phenomenal.
He went to Arsenal.
Yeah, but so did Petr Cech.
Yeah, but
Cole also played for Arsenal.
David Luiz went off to PSG, celebrated in front of the Chelsea fans when he knocked us out of the Champions League, then came back to Chelsea and then went to Arsenal. That's just no.
Yeah, I mean the man has no loyalty. I was just saying as an overall player, I think that season, I think he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. Right back, I think I know this one.
Branislav Ivanovic.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be Branislav, hasn't it? He was a big game player as well, Branislav. Bran. Oh, if I can spell him. God, is that the highest rated card he has as well? Jeez.
Again, supremely underrated player.
Curly's put Willian greater than Mount. Please do not bring that kind of slander in here. Next up, who are we going with?
So let's go at the CDMs. So first one, Claude Makelele.
Yep. No surprises there.
And then the other one is the current best CDM, not Jorginho, and N'Golo Kante.
I was going to type in Jorginho just to see your reaction. I thought it was going to be Kante. I must say, that French. Imagine if you had that French duo in midfield now. Imagine.
Yeah, it would be insane.
Mental. Next up, Louis, what are you going with?
Well, Frank Lampard.
Yeah, I thought so. I didn't know if you wanted to spring anyone else in here. And just before we move on to the attacking threesome, if you will, the attacking threesome, there is a player who I think we should mention who also used to play for Arsenal in Nicolas Anelka. Player that he actually did pretty. I think he was a Golden Boot winner for Chelsea in the Premier League. So maybe a player that we tend to forget about when we talk about Chelsea's elite strikers. But I think that was because he was in that phenomenal Chelsea side that was all conquering pretty much, wasn't he? And so he still seemed to get left behind a little bit because he had Drogba, he had Lampard there, who were both putting in good seasons. How far away is he from your team? I mean, obviously, I know I've just sprung that one on you, but in terms of like an out and out centre forward, he can't be too far off, can he?
No, he was probably second or third on my list in terms of all time. Well, the Abramovich era Chelsea strikers. But if I want to get straight into the striker, obviously, I'm going to put Didier Drogba as the main man.
Insert clip of KSI saying Drogba.
Then left wing. So I was slightly confused. I couldn't because to be honest, both players that I picked for the wingers could play on either side of the wing. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But for specifically left wing, Eden Hazard.
Yeah, it has to be, doesn't it? Has to be. Are you going to turn around and tell me that right wing is like Oscar or someone like that?
No.
I'm intrigued because I cannot think. Let me try and think about right wingers that Chelsea have had that would.
No, as I said, I don't think he always. I don't think he played right wing a lot. It's just that I knew that he could play. He can play right wing if you ask him.
I mean, the one who comes to mind is Joe Cole.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's in my mind though because I know he's got a FIFA card recently. I genuinely like now that we're coming through it. Like I am genuinely just blanking the whole time from a right winger. Surprised Sam hasn't squeezed Mount in there somewhere. If this was my team, it'd just be Mount in every position, Max. So there you are. And Curly said right wing Willian. No, that is not happening. I've already told Louis he will get banned from this channel. Who's your right winger then? I cannot think of anyone. I cannot think of who was a right winger other than Salomon Kalou and Willian.
I've put Iron Robin.
Oh, yes. I totally forgot about that. I don't think I'd have come up with Iron Robin in a month of Sundays there. Has he got a card?
He's not going to have a Chelsea card. He did leave in like 2007.
Oh, yeah. But I was going to have a look. Is that what's his youngest photo? Probably this one here. Oh, God, he still had no hair. Never mind. We'll go for his highest rated. 96, Iron Robin. Lovely stuff. No, do that for the chemistry. Sam has a Mount clone machine in his basement. Sounds a bit weird, and he has 16 different ones for starting. Yeah, exactly. To be honest with you, I don't know what I could actually change of this team. It's pretty much perfect. I mean, I can't personally really remember Makelele too much, but that's just the age that we are. We know how good he was. We know legends and myths, and we've been told how good Claude Makelele was for Chelsea. But as the rest of this team, you look at it, and over that Roman era, it has been so fantastic, so fantastic. We got Ashley Cole from Arsenal. Who'd have thought someone getting a left back from Arsenal and just all of a sudden taking him from being a great player to an absolute world beater, best left back on the planet for quite a few years as well. And then a guy from Bolton turned into a club legend. It is
unbelievable.
absolutely mental. I'm trying to think of more wingers now for Chelsea, and I just cannot think of a single player, and it's
You got
really annoying me.
Pedro.
Yeah, I mean Pedro was good, to be fair, when he
He was
played.
alright.
But he's not going to get in over. He's not Aiden Hazard, Didier Drogba level. It's not that level of competitiveness. I genuinely can't tell you. Could not tell you. I am genuinely just drawing a blank. My final question before we move on from this and probably conclude this video, as we have been going for an hour 20, is Sean's just put his name in the chat. How far away is this man from getting into this team? Because whilst he might not have been the most consistent of goal scorers for Chelsea, when it came to it, Didier Drogba, Fernando Torres did well in big games. He did. He was our top goal scorer for 2 seasons, I do believe. Yes, he didn't bag the amount that we maybe expected, but he definitely scored on the big occasions. The 50 million was paid off with that one run round. Was it Claudio Bravo or Victor Valdez? Probably Victor Valdez. I've probably gone too late with Claudio Bravo. But how far away is he from this squad? Because for me, I think I think what happens is you almost lump Fernando Torres in, and you either go one of two ways. You either go, he was absolutely rubbish, or he was legendary.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no in between. Whereas I think Chelsea was very much that in between.
I mean, Torres. Yeah, he was far from the player that he was at Liverpool, and I think that's probably where a lot of the negative criticism comes from him at Chelsea. Like, because he was just unstoppable at Liverpool. He was an incredible player, and I think it was going to be very difficult when you're signing for £50 million on deadline day. It's going to be difficult to sort of pay that, and I think the pressure did get to him at Chelsea, and he made quite a few very, very obvious errors at Chelsea, and ones that I think people tend to remember over.
I'm surprised you remember that, Max.
They tend to remember that over things that he did well, but no, he paid off his, like Kai Havertz did in the Champions League final. You know, any shred of doubt about how much we paid for him went as soon as he took us to a Champions League final that we then went on to win.
Yeah.
And that Torres played in. You know, people tend to forget that Fernando Torres did play in the Champions League final as well. And Daniel Sturridge was in that squad.
Yeah, so was Ryan Bertrand, our starting left midfielder for that game. Absolutely mental. That the Chelsea teams that we've had, and to think the 2 teams that have won the Champions League for Chelsea were nowhere near their peak, and that just shows. And I'm sure Manchester City will be learning that it doesn't necessarily mean that the best team on the planet wins. Obviously, for the 2 times Chelsea won it, we were the best team on the planet. And for legal reasons, I have to say that. But no, of course not. But it is one of those things with Fernando Torres. I think you sit there and you go, he was a brilliant goal scorer for Liverpool, and that expectation, that 50 million price tag, definitely didn't do him good. And he rushed himself back as well, didn't he, for the 2010 World Cup? And there is a documentary, I do believe, on Amazon, and where he speaks about it, and he says he regrets it a little bit, but he doesn't regret it because he won the World Cup. And had he not rushed himself back and got himself and said, "Yeah, no, I'm fine, I'm fit," it would have been. He'd have missed out on so much, and he was part of that all-conquering Spain side, and he was a brilliant footballer, Fernando Torres. But I think for me, it's just one of those nostalgia ones when I was sort of like 12, 13, when I was really starting to fall in love with football at that age. Torres was a player who was about, and even what I'd seen him at Liverpool and gone, wow, what an amazing footballer. His debut was against Chelsea, wasn't it, for Liverpool, where he scored 2, and he was a phenomenal footballer. It's just he never quite got there. But for me, not too far away from that. I think personally, in terms of in terms of goal scoring ability, he doesn't finish in that top 3. But in terms of what he meant to me as a footballer and me as a young kid wanting to be a footballer, Torres fits in at second. I think Drogba was always the man. But for me, Torres was one that inspired me with beyond belief. The guts and the determination to keep going month after month, despite a lot of problems and adversity. It was, Torres, you can't knock him for that. He always gave 100%, even if he did take the ball around the goalkeeper and miss against Manchester United. But I think we're going to conclude that here for now, guys. So I do hope you have enjoyed this stream with myself and Louis. Louis, thank you for coming on and explaining beautifully, I must say, the whole Roman Abramovich stuff. I really do appreciate it. And of course, thank you for your input for tonight's stream. Any last words to the SRL community?
If you support Tottenham, I don't understand why you still keep living.
Jesus. That one was aimed at you, Max. That was a direct attack. Moving on. So, Jesus. Very true, but Jesus. Yes. So that has been a little bit of discussion about Roman Abramovich, what next for Chelsea, all of answering a few of your questions for you. I do hope you have enjoyed. And if you haven't already, Kelly's just put what a sign off. Yeah, that would it. Is that me? Why is that me again? How old am I there, Curly? You are getting to questionable levels of how young I am in these photos. I don't think you should have these on your computer. Or your phone. God.
He's definitely going through your Facebook right now.
Yeah, he is. I didn't even realize that was on my Facebook. Buy and go AC Milan. And yeah, so if you have enjoyed this video, guys, do be sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe for us. Let's try and go for like 15 likes on this stream. That would be absolutely phenomenal. And of course, do be sure to check out Louis George, who you can see my glamorous assistant for today. If you do like a bit of Louis George content, go over to Twitter. What's your Twitter, Louis?
L_G_Edwards.
Yeah, a really catchy Twitter handle there from Louis. But do be sure to, drop some love to Louis as well. And of course, thank you, Louis, for joining us for tonight.
Absolutely no worries.
Brill. So, guys, we will see you tomorrow. I think I'm going to do Burnley versus Chelsea. Louis, you're always welcome to come around and sit and watch that one with me if you would like. And we can arrange that off stream if you aren't too busy. But I will be doing that tomorrow. So if you guys are wanting to have a little bit more of a dosage of Sam Redgate-Large, I don't know why you would do, but if you do be sure to stick around for that. So thank you for watching, guys, and most importantly, as always, stay safe. Cheers.